They're going to do a lot of infrastructure. They're going to make paths for bicycles. They're going to do that whole river path thing. It's going to be a big deal. So what are we talking about? Sprawl versus new urbanism. What is sprawl? Separation of uses. You've probably heard of Euclidean zoning. Euclidean zoning is not named after Euclid. It's named after a city called Euclid, where they came up with the concept back in the 20s, which is houses over here, stores over here, industry over here, never shall any of them meet. So you have separation of uses under sprawl. Under new urbanism, you have mixed uses. Sprawl has minimum densities, new urbanism moderate to high densities. Sprawl has street standards designed for cars. We talked about our auto-centric world. Street standards in new urbanism are designed for pedestrians.
That means the cars don't fit?
No, they do fit. But narrower roads do two things. They're much cheaper to build and maintain. And I give you an example. A 24-foot wide road costs about a third of what a 36-foot road costs.
I guess I don't quite see the fact if they want
I'm
people
not,
to walk
no,
and
no,
then you've got narrow roads and you have more accidents. And
no, you're right. Narrow roads do two things. They're cheaper, but they slow cars down. Cars don't go as fast when the road's narrow, for obvious reasons.
Okay.
And you have stop signs. It's a pedestrian-friendly environment. You have stop signs, and just like when you drive past a school and the sign says, speed limit 25.
Okay.
Street standards are designed for cars, standards for pedestrians. Curvilinear streets versus interconnected streets. Oh, don't get me started on that. I was telling someone just the other day. Drive around in LA. All these neighborhoods in LA, they're all cut themselves off. They go to the city to say, we want these streets blocked. We don't want all this traffic coming through our neighborhoods. You've got the speed bumps, all that stuff. All that does is force all the traffic onto the arterial roads. So you ever go down Wilshire, you ever go down Santa Monica, you ever go down Olympic, it's a zoo. Why is it a zoo? Because there's no alternatives. Go to Manhattan. Manhattan's got a much denser population. Are there any cul-de-sacs in Manhattan? No. Every street goes through. It's all about access. It's about interconnectedness. If I can take the side street, that's one less car on the arterial. And the other, then these speed bumps. I told you, it's like, you can see I'm passionate about this. All the speed, I don't know about you guys, all the speed bump on a road tells me is I'm on the right path. Because they wouldn't put it there unless that was a way to get somewhere. So, I see a speed bump and it's like, it's getting me where I need to go, where if I don't see a speed bump, I may not be familiar with that neighborhood. And I may not know where I'll end up, or I'll drive around in circles for a while. But if there's a speed bump, I'm on the path I need to be on to get somewhere. Private open space and sprawl, much more about public open space in new urbanism. Large lots in sprawl, smaller lots, wide setbacks. New urbanism is about building to the lines. Sprawl is about private orientation. There's a much more public realm under new urbanism. It's a much more sort of citified environment. And again, sprawl is about minimum parking, because and then maximum parking under new urbanism, because we want your car parked. We don't want you to have to use it. That's why we're creating public options, pedestrian options, bicycle options. So, traditional neighborhoods, mixed uses, density, public realm, civic uses, connectivity, setbacks and area controls, and urban designs. So, sustainability. It's nothing new. This is Mesa Verde. These people lived in what we call traditional neighborhoods. It's nothing new. This is Los Angeles 100 years ago. What do you got? You've got cars, you've got plenty of cars. You've got people on the street, you've got trolleys, you've got storefronts, and you've got you have apartments above, you have housing above. It's a mixed-use environment. This is a traditional neighborhood. Here's Manhattan, here's New York 100 years ago. You've got stores, you've got a lot of wagons and carts, but you have stores below, apartments above. Here's New York today, very same thing, stores below, apartments above.
Aren't they doing some of that in other cities? I remember seeing some of that in some areas of San Jose. New buildings.
They're doing it everywhere.
Everywhere.
Drive down Ventura Boulevard in Encino, where I live.
Fillmore.
They've got all these buildings. They're building their retail below,
Apartments above.
apartments above.
Yep.
It's actually very interesting. When they started putting these in my neighborhood, I had friends and neighbors who were screaming about what it was going to do to the traffic. They got it backwards. The people who live in those apartments, they leave in the morning, they come back late in the afternoon, they're gone all day. It's the people who live in the houses that are the problem. They take the kids to school, they come back. They go to the supermarket, they come back. The gardener comes in and he leaves. The pool guy comes in and he leaves. You got an average, a national average, you have 10 trips per suburban household a day. So the reality, and then of course, with an apartment building, you've got one gardener for all those apartments. You don't have a gardener for every house. So you're using a lot less land, you have a lot less need for traffic. And then of course, these apartment buildings, they're right there on the boulevard. There's restaurants right there, the supermarket's right there. You can walk, you can bike, the cleaner is right down the street, you can take your cleaning over there. You don't have to get in the car to get wherever you're going. I'm a perfect example. I live in the hills in Encino. It's 2 miles to Ventura Boulevard from my house. Now, and it's steep, so I don't have a problem going down to the boulevard. I just can't get back up. It's not a lot of fun. And so if I'm going anywhere, 99.9% of the time I'm getting in my car. And there's no public transportation up in those hills. If I'm either going down there by myself in my car to go run my errands, to go to the store, whatever I'm doing, or I'm not going. That's where the house is, and that's where I chose to live. And it is what it is. But we're talking about a new concept on how we're going to do these things, because the old concept doesn't really work. So this is actually a property that never got built, but it's a good example of what we're talking about. So here's a property out in, actually towards Palmdale, actually, isn't it?
Is it Gorman? Quail Lake? Gorman?
Quail Lake, yeah, it's like Gorman.
Is it the 138 and the 5 freeway?
I think you're right. I'm not familiar with it myself.
Yeah, you should know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here was the plan that was set up for it. Natural open spaces. They had roads, interconnected roads throughout. And here's the lake.
Neil, that's Tejon Ranch, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. It's Tejon Ranch.
And they're in the process of getting approval. It's called Centennial Village.
Yeah.
And they've cleared the biggest hurdle, which was with the, if you don't mind me interjecting.
No, if you know, tell it.
Well, I was intimately involved because I own the property next door.
Ah.
Right where that V is to the left of the property, you see where the V is?
Yes.
And the 3,000 acres to the left of it, and above it was mine. They are in the process of getting approval. The biggest hurdle they cleared.
It's been a long haul, and there was a lot of stink about traffic and all those other things.
Yeah, well, for them the biggest hurdles was with all the environmental groups, and that's cleared.
Right.
So now they're just on the path to getting it done. 23,000 homes is what their proposal is over a 20-year build out.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But the reason I put it in here is as the example of what they were building as a new urbanist, traditional space kind of thing. So they had natural open spaces. You can see there's a lot of interconnectivity, and here's what they're doing. So, walkable communities. They're creating individual communities within. And the rule of thumb is about a quarter mile. People will walk about a quarter mile to stores and back.
Yeah.
That's it. I know it doesn't sound like much. People will accept a quarter mile. So here's another example. Up in Virginia, they went to all this trouble. They built all this public transportation and trains, subways and things like from Washington. And the federal government put in a big office building, and they built it 3/4 of a mile from the train station. And so everybody takes their car.
Oh, wow.
If they had built it a quarter mile from the train station, everybody would take the train. It's just one of those rules of thumb. If you make it too big, people just don't want to be bothered. So what we're doing here is you've got walkable communities, you have churches, you're building little mini communities within this district. And each one is its own little neighborhood. And each one is going to have some basic shopping, some things, reasons to not get into a car and drive off and go find a route. And each community has the opportunity to sort of create its own standards architecturally, so it has its own personality, so that you come into this community and say, this is the community I want to live in versus that community which, I don't like that style of architecture, whatever it is. But you create a level of distinctiveness that allows people to feel like they have, they belong to something. And then you have integration of mixed land uses in the communities. So you have to have two kinds of shopping centers, really. You have some small, each community might have a smaller little shopping, general sort of store, and then you're going to have centers that are going to be more of a civic center where people can do more of their major requirements.
Neil, what about parks? Is there a mandatory for population?
I don't know the specific number. I don't know that there's a specific number. You have 20 people, you have to have a certain size park. I don't believe that's the case. Okay. But you can see they're maintaining all this greenery. They're maintaining all this I should say open space because of where it is. And they can put hiking trails, bike trails. I mean, they're doing a lot of what we did in Santa Fe County was create a whole trail system countywide for hiking, for biking, what we call ecotourism, which is people come in, they stay in their hotels, and they do wildlife stuff. They go out and they do physical exercise kind of stuff. The Rio Grande goes through Santa Fe County, and they have river rafting. They have all kinds of it's a great location. Anyway, I'm not trying to sell Santa Fe County. So you have to create the opportunity for people to do shopping, and you have major centers, but you also want to maintain these smaller local areas so people don't have to get in their cars every day and go shopping and do all those things.
Just one comment. You're minimizing the travel distance for the consumer,
Right.
but are you thinking about the business side? Because now you're driving a lot more traffic, granted maybe smaller trucks, that have got to go to 20 different places instead of one. So you're driving commercial traffic up.
That's true, but there's a lot fewer trucks going to the Costco than there are individual consumers going to the Costco. So I'm using Costco as an example, but we've all been to Costco, and there's 500 or 600 cars in the parking lot.
But you're talking about all these little individual neighborhoods, quarter mile away. All of those need distribution services as well.
It's going to change it from semis to straight trucks, but there's going to be...
It does. It makes a big difference.
An infrastructure change on the business side.
It makes a big difference.
Less cars, more trucks?
Yeah.
You may have more and smaller trucks, but they'll never number the number of cars that people are individually getting into. It'll never be anything. So, more choices with employment, housing, shopping. Again, you want people to live, like I said before, people drive until they qualify. You want people to live where they work and work where they live. You don't want them driving from Lancaster to downtown LA. Let them take the metro lanes, please. And then we're going to move on to transit. So you can see in this picture, we've got a transit center here. We've got a transit center here. So people can go to a train, or maybe it's a bus. In this instance,